What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Calgary Barbell. The weekend is almost upon us, and you know what that means? It's form check time. Opening us up today, Ryan Johnson here, my man, doing some equipped lifting. That's what I like to see. Couple things here. He sent in a squat. These were his planned openers. I believe he competed this past weekend at Ontario Provincials. Now I know that because I think he was one of the only competitors who was competing against one of my clients. So Ryan's doing a squat here. Really good looking squat. Couple very small things that I would try to work on. Number one, I would try to slow and control your walkout a little bit. It looks a little bit rushed, a little bit unstable, and that's only gonna get more and more exaggerated or become more and more of an issue as the weight goes up on the bar. With equipped squatting, one of the toughest things is often the walkout. You know, we're not privileged to use a monolift, so we have to walk our weights out. So when we do that, especially with, you know, 110, 120% on your back, you really got to slow it down one step at a time, purposeful, deliberate steps. But honestly, the squat looks really, really good. Looks like it might be a little bit on the line depth-wise, but I mean, I only have a front view here. One thing I might try if depth is or becomes an issue is a little bit more of a moderate stance. That can help you get a little bit better depth. Something to try out anyways, man. The other thing Ryan submitted here is a deadlift. Now, Ryan's deadlift, I kind of just wanted to show as an example of a really good equipped deadlift. I think Ryan's a pretty big guy. He might be 120 plus. And just the timing of pulling into the suit to being able to use the suit looks really, really good. A little bit choppy at lockout, so that tells me we're losing a little bit of position off the floor. But especially in a deadlift suit, that's gonna be exaggerated. It's gonna be even harder to maintain a good neutral position through the low back and hips. So I think, Ryan, you did a great job here, and I don't know the meet results for yourself yet, but I hope you had a good meet, man. Today's next video comes from Zack, and Zack's from Hawaii. His email comes up as the hammer. Anyways, Zack, squats here. You're doing a little bit of what I call the preparatory glute squeeze, sorry. Now, my fiance Selena does this as well, and I'm trying to get her to stop it. But essentially, it's that instant before you squat where you kind of squeeze your glutes that overextend before initiating the squat. I would try not to do that. The reason for that being, I've seen a couple people who tend to do that in competition, dump the bar right off their back. You're getting into a little bit of an overextended position. The bar is getting out of position with where it usually rests along your sort of center of gravity. And if it gets too far behind your center of gravity, it's gonna come toppling off your back or you're gonna fall down. So I would say try and focus more on bracing. I like the idea that you're using something to brace yourself before you initiate the squat, but try not to make it an overextension of your hips. The other thing I'm seeing from the front angle here is that we got a little bit of knee crash going on. Now, you have a very wide squat for your build. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, just an observation. But one thing that I've noticed pretty consistently with people who have wide squats and a tendency for a knee cave or a valgus knee crash is that if we narrow your stance up a little bit, we can oftentimes mitigate a lot of that knee crash. So that's something to try out. I want you to give that a shot and just see if it helps. Now, your bench press video here looks really solid. I would say that if this is your competition movement for the week, you definitely want to practice pausing them, regardless of how many reps you're doing. But that's neither really here nor there. This might have just been a touch and go set. So maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. With your deadlift, it actually looked really good, and I think you have great shoulder positioning, so kudos, man. Next up, we have a Form Check Friday success story. Now this guy here, his name's Alex Alfaro. He's been with Calgary Barbell, he's been following our stuff and commenting on our videos like since we had 100 subscribers. This guy's OG as it gets, and I couldn't be happier that your deadlift now looks like this. He said he's eliminated a lot of the rounding in his back. He's pulling the slack out of the bar now. and it looks like it's really clicking for him. That's a good looking deadlift, and I'm super, super happy to see that and to have that be a result of what we've done here with the channel and all that stuff. So it brings a tear to my eye. But thank you for submitting that. And if anybody else has, you know, success stories or ways that the channel's helped you out, I love hearing it. You know, we get a lot of messages and stuff saying that people dig the content, and that kind of stuff just makes our day. It means a lot that people go out of their way to tell us we're doing a good job. So thank you so much. Next up, we got a video from Tristan. Tristan's doing a deadlift here. He looks like he's probably a young guy, I'm gonna guess. I don't know, 18, 19, maybe early 20s, maybe younger. It's hard to tell from a video. But first, let's go over the deadlift. So, deadlift, it looks like we're losing the torso position forward over the bar as you initiate the deadlift. So yeah, you said in your email that you have a really tough time right off the floor. I think that's because you're going from a pretty good back position to being out like this over the bar, so your back's a little bit more sort of parallel to the floor. I think if you can learn to be a little bit more patient with your deadlift and maintain a little bit more of an upright torso, that's gonna go a long ways, as well as keeping your shoulders glued into position a little bit better. But one of the reasons I chose this video is because at the end here, you watch his buddy come over, and I don't know if Dylan's gonna have audio on this, but these guys are so jacked up that you just made that deadlift PR. It's awesome. I just thought that was really cool. And it reminds me of my younger brothers doing their training and getting so jacked up on PRs and stuff. So that's really what it's all about. But hopefully those couple of cues can help clean that deadlift up a little bit. I know this was a max attempt, so it really probably exaggerates some of those issues. But stick with it, dude. It's looking good so far. Lastly, we got a video here from Nate. Now, Nate said this was his second of 3 singles with 495. He said the next week he got, not stapled, but he wasn't able to lift 515. So, one thing that I'm seeing right off the floor, and it's pretty apparent with this rep, both right off the floor, as you initiate the deadlift and right as you lock it out, is we're losing just the smallest little bit of low back positioning and low back neutrality, causing us to have to lock out with the back and not the hips. So I know I talk about this a lot, but I feel like it's really apparent in this deadlift, so it might be good to illustrate and to show exactly what that looks like from a good side angle position. Now, the other thing that I'm noticing is as a result of that, once you pass the knees, you're trying to kind of slide the knees under. You're trying to use a lot of quad to kind of stand it up, more so than coming to a full extension in a lever pattern. What that all kind of boils down to is you're getting out of trusting your posterior chain to do the rest of the work. So what I want you to try to do is I want you to try to keep that weight back on your heels, even if it's a little bit weaker, even if it's a little bit slower, and try not to rush that lockout so we can get things locking in the right timing, as well as with the right sort of mechanics. I think in your position specifically, a couple movements that might benefit are gonna be RDLs, stiff-legged deadlifts, and maybe even deficit deadlifts to put you out of position and teach you how to be patient to regain your position as you go through the lift. Now, we may never be able to get you into a fully flat back position unless you're willing to take a lot of steps back, etc. I talked about this in the previous Form Check Friday, how you have to kind of treat the flat back deadlift as a totally different movement from the round back deadlift. But if we can get you to trust your posterior to lock out, you're not going to run into hitching, which is one thing that might come from lifts like that, especially if it's exaggerated with more weight. And you're gonna be able to strengthen a lot of the components involved in making that lockout happen. So stiff legs, snatch grip stiff legs, those are especially torturous and terrible, but very useful. RDLs, and like I said, maybe some deficit deadlifts to really put you out of position and force you to learn how to regain position as you go through the lift. That's it for this Form Check Friday, guys. We are officially up to, drum roll please, we're up to July 8th. Currently. We'll be moving on from there. Please continue submitting these. Submit your success stories as well. We do try to get back to everybody. Leave a like if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Training logs. We're going to be getting ready for Equipped Worlds here really soon. That will be cool. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.